Hey BookTube, it's Samantha. I know it's been a little while, I'm so sorry. But today I'm gonna be doing the mid-year book tag because I wanna talk about my books. I think it'd be a really great opportunity to catch some of you guys up on what I've been reading, and then also to talk about the books that I've read before I started my channel. So I'm very excited about that. But first of all, I wanna do a little bit of a life update. Now, in a previous video, I've talked about how I work in the mental health profession and I help people with trying to get back on their feet or just getting on their feet in the first place when they're suffering from a severe mental illness. So there are some days that work is really hard on me, a lot harder than on other days. There's other days that it's the greatest job ever and I get to see the excitement of people when they're accepted for housing or when they get a job. It's really exciting, but unfortunately last week was one of those weeks that was not so good for me. You don't see it now, but last week I spent a lot of time grieving because one of my clients had passed away from medical reasons. It wasn't anything directly related to her mental health, but it was really hard on me. I had spent a lot of time thinking about her and trying to figure out ways that I can support her in the way she wants, and ultimately she wasn't ready yet to go there with me, and her medical issues were taking precedence over her mental health. So I was doing some grieving this past week and I just wasn't in a space to record. I found out about it Tuesday late afternoon, which is usually the day that I do my videos for midweek, and there was no way I was going to be getting on a camera because it was way too raw. I'm completely open with you guys about my life, but that was just something I wasn't ready to be sharing about. So sorry I haven't been around, but it's just kind of part of the job. So I'm feeling a lot better now. I feel like I've done my grieving process for her. I know it was kind of short, but it's different for everyone. Every person is different. I'm learning that as I get older, and I'm ready to record some videos for you guys. Let's get on to the questions. Question number 1. What is the best book you've read so far in the year 2019? This was somewhat of an easy question for me. I'm not going to count rereads, which for me would be Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I reread that book at the beginning of the year, and it's definitely one of my favorite books of the Harry Potter series, definitely a favorite of mine. But I'm only going to do new books, so that means Dragons of Autumn Twilight, which is book 1 of the Dragonlance series by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. Loved every single page of this book. So invested with these characters. I love the storyline. Just loved it. Absolutely loved it. And yes, this is my copy. It came in from Barnes & Noble on Friday. So I just recently got my hands on it again. I'm probably going to reread it just to have it fresh in my head before I jump into book 2. But yes, favorite book 2019 so far. Shit, I don't remember what I wanted for this question. Question number 2, best sequel that you've read so far in 2019. Now, oddly enough, or maybe not so oddly enough, I haven't read that many sequels this year. I've been reading a lot of different books, a lot of new books, and I always have this habit of starting new series but then never continuing them. But here is one of the examples of where I continue with the series and loved it. Exile, which is book 2 of R.A. Salvatore's Legend of Drizzt series. Again, talked about this book numerous times on my channel, but I just love Drizzt. I love going along this path with him, this journey where he's definitely flawed and he's learning from his mistakes along the way, and he meets new characters along the way. I just love it. Question number 3. New release you want to read but just haven't read it yet. And for this one, there's 2 books, which is really weird because normally I'm not into the new releases at all. But since I started my channel and also with the books that I buy, it just so happens there's a couple of new releases that I'm really wanting to get to, but I haven't got to yet. First one is Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I've seen this book all over BookTube, and from what I understand, there's actually kind of mixed reviews about it. There's some people who really love it. There's a lot of people who are like, hey, it's one book, it's a standalone fantasy, like that is reason enough alone to read it. You can actually get a whole entire story in just one book. And then other people are like, it was just boring. It was blah, there wasn't really much going on. So I'm actually really excited to get into it to see what I think of it. It is a chunker, I realize this, but I do really want to get to it. And I know I'm cheating by having 2 books for this question, but I don't care. And that is In an Absent Dream, which is book 4 by Seanan McGuire. I love this series, and I've read books 1 through 3. I just haven't got around to this one yet. I was planning on rereading all the books before getting into this one, and I've read book 1, but I have yet to get through 2 and 3 again. I just keep on picking up other books. I'm kind of wanting to explore new stories, and maybe I should just jump into 4 without reading 2 and 3 again. Still thinking on it. Question number 4, most anticipated release in the second half of 2019. And like I said before, new releases aren't really something I am on the up and up about. Normally I go to other booktubers to see what the new releases are and what people are talking about. But so with this question, I had to do a little bit of research to even see what was coming out. And I had just looked at fantasy because that's the general genre I go for. But I'm also kind of into horror. So I'm sure if I looked at the horror books that are coming out, there would be some on this list. But in regards to fantasy, one of my most anticipated releases that I'm very much looking forward to is Brent Weeks' number 5 and I believe last installment of the Lightbringer series, which is The Burning White. As I talked about in my birthday book haul video, which I'll link up above somewhere, I actually picked up book number 4, and then I don't know if I showed you guys, but I also have books 1 and 2 on my shelf with book 1 as a signed copy, which is like so amazing. But anyway, just need to get my hands on book 3, but I really love book 1. I'm getting through book 2, really loving that one just as much. And I know I should probably not be anticipating the 5th one since I haven't read books 2, 3, and 4 completely, but I love Brent Weeks, so don't know what to tell you. That's what I got. Question 5, biggest disappointment. And I hate to say this, like I know which book came up for me, and it makes me sad that this is my biggest disappointment, but it's true. So I just need to be honest to myself about it, and that's The Chalk Man by C.J. Tudor. I'm not saying that this was a bad book. It was definitely a good story, and there's a lot of booktubers out there who say they really love this story, and I'm so glad that they loved it. I really truly am, because I could tell that it was written well, and the mystery part that was in there was well written. It was realistic. That part was great. I just unfortunately went in with this expectation that it was going to be supernatural, and it wasn't at all. And that's what I was wanting for the book, and it kind of ruined it for me. So I just kind of want to put it out there that the disappointment wasn't with the book itself. It was more of a disappointment that I went in with a certain expectation that the book really wasn't there to provide. Please give it a shot. If you love mystery, go for it. It's a great book. Just don't expect supernatural stuff because it ain't in there. It ain't in there. Book number 6 is The Biggest Surprise. So for me, this is interesting. There's a few books that came up for me, but I think the biggest surprise for me was Slade House by David Mitchell. I think that was the biggest surprise for me because I'd heard so many things about Cloud Atlas being really convoluted and not all there, and then I've heard about The Bone Clocks by David Mitchell and how it's a really complicated and really dense story. And I saw Slade House on a list of books that you should read, like in the horror genre. Picked it up and I read the first chapter and I'm like, really? I didn't know what to expect, but then I read chapter 2. And then I kind of saw the puzzle pieces laying itself together, and it was very smart. It was written well. I loved how everything was intertwined. I think I've recommended this book in other videos just because I feel like it was executed better than other books have tried to do it. Fave new author. Now, I really didn't want to try and talk about the same books over and over again, but when I looked at my list, there was really only one new favorite author, and that's Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. I just loved the writing style of this book. It kept me entranced the whole way through. Loved this story, and no other new author did that for me so far. Okay, guys, can we talk about this? Questions 8 and 9 are about your newest fictional crush and your newest favorite character. When it comes to the crush thing, I don't crush on characters. That's not a thing for me. I don't ship certain relationships. I legitimately don't understand the whole crushing on characters in the books. There's things that I like about it. I think the closest I've ever come to having a crush on a fictional character would be Reese in A Court of Mist and Fury. I think this is the closest I've ever come to actually crushing on a fictional character. So I definitely didn't read this year, but I'm not crushing on anyone. I don't crush on people. So for number 8, this is literally the only answer. So that's what we got. The new favorite character, again, I really don't have favorite characters. I think Books and Lala had also talked about this, how this isn't really her thing, but if a favorite character meant she would want to continue reading more about that character, and that's how she made her decision on a book. And I guess for me, the newest one, it'd have to be these guys again. They're the ones that I was the closest to having a relationship with. I believe I felt more in tune with the thief, Tasselhoff. Yeah. I was the closest to Tasselhoff, which is kind of like this thief, mischief character, but he's really complex, which I really loved about that. Like, he wasn't just comic relief. He was an actual dynamic, complex character, which is what I really loved, and I would like to follow him more. Surprisingly enough, because there's a lot of other characters that were definitely bigger than him, but I liked him the best. For books that made me cry, there's 2 books that fall in this category. I'm going to talk about both of them because one of them I have here, but the other one was definitely more impactful for me. The runner-up for me is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. The ending definitely got to me. The whole Twister thing, that made me cry. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed this book, but I don't think I had the emotional impact that other people had. And I think part of that is because I have not lived in Evelyn's shoes. I don't know what she's experienced, so I didn't have as big of a draw as someone else might who has lived in her shoes. I could see why it would be extremely emotional for those people who have read this book. So for me, personally, this is a runner-up. Definitely made me cry. But first place definitely goes to Belonging by Nora Krug. This is actually one of my very first book reviews that I did on this channel, so I'll link that up above. I really just felt her emotion through the writing, and I especially felt that emotion when her father goes to his brother's grave and states, "This is the closest I've ever been to my brother." Like, that just broke me down. Like, I can see the image of that page in my mind, and it's just really left a long-lasting impression on me, even though I read it back in January or February. I just really love that story, and it definitely made me cry. Book that made me happy. Okay, this might seem a little weird, but it's totally fitting, and that is Fear Street Cheerleaders, The First Evil. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but I did this ranty review of me reading the book. I didn't actually read the book page by page in the video, but I was just kind of sharing my thoughts on the book throughout the video while I was reading the book. This is something that I read when I was a teenager, and I wanted to reread it again because I remember really good things of it, and it really freaked me out when I was a teenager, and I just kind of wanted to see if it was still there. And I read this book. It was amazing, and it definitely made me happy, especially when I got to the end. I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I was wanting, and I was so glad I read it. So I know it sounds weird that a horror book made me happy, but it was kind of more of the nostalgia thing, and just rereading it again that just really brought all that happiness back. For most beautiful book that I bought this year, it definitely go Priory of the Orange Tree. I just love this cover. It's so pretty. I mean, you guys, you understand, right? Like, it's pretty. It's gorgeous. Like, even the spine is gorgeous. It's all gorgeous. This last question kind of gives me a little anxiety. But it is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? So with this question, I'm going to focus on the books that are on my shelves, because if I talk about all the books I want to read by the end of the year, we're going to be here for another hour, okay? I don't want to keep you here for another hour. So let's focus on my shelves, okay? This. I need to read these. I'm going to try and just go through it really quick, because I don't want to go through all these books in detail, but like, legit, like, there's different reasons why I really want to get to all these books in this year, okay? So let's just do it. First of all, Clash of Kings, already talked about. I started it, I need to finish it. The Secret History by Donna Tartt, again, I started it, I need to finish it. Just talked about this, don't need to go over it again. All the rest of them, I think I can give a little more explanation to. A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. All I know about this book is that it made people cry, and that no one really wants to read past this. I don't know if it's because they feel it was satisfying ending, or if it just destroyed them so much that they don't want to read any more of it. I don't know, but I need to finish it. I really don't plan on reading any more, because I know there's more books coming out, and I really don't have any intention of reading past this. So we'll see how this goes, but I just want to get it done, because if I don't want to keep it, I'd rather get it off my shelf. The Great Hunt by Robert Jordan. Read book 1, really loved it, and the story's somewhat still there, so I want to make sure I read this one this year, so that I don't have to have these huge breaks in between stories. I can still somewhat remember it and not have to reread the books again. This one, I don't know if I should be embarrassed that I haven't read this book or not, but The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I have not read it yet. Heard it's amazing. It's got the Hugo Award. I think the other books in the series have the Hugo Award too. I just need to get it under my belt. Like, let's do it. These books are books that I'm not planning on reading now, but I want to read around Halloween, and you'll understand why. And that's Unburied Carol by Josh Malerman and Exorcist Falls by Jonathan Janz. These are both books that I've been wanting to read for a while, but my library just flat out did not have this book at all. The LA library did not have it on ebook or in physical copy at all. So I had to buy it, and I did. Both these books, really spooky, creepy vibe, and I really want to read them, but I'm waiting until the time is right. So this is Jo Nesbø's book, The Devil's Star. I believe it's book 5 of the Harry Hole series. I've already read this before, but I'm trying to get through the books again. I've already read The Bat, which is book 1, Cockroaches, book 2, Red Breast, which is book 3, Nemesis, which is book 4. So I'm just kind of working my way through the series still, and that means Devil's Star, which is book 5. I really love Jo Nesbø's mystery books. He's Norwegian? Yes, he's Norwegian, so I really like having an outside perspective that's not American. Next one I want to get to is volume 6, which is Fables and Reflections by Neil Gaiman, and it's part of the Sandman series. I have read volumes 1 through 5 multiple times. I love the dark atmosphere of this story. It's one of the few Neil Gaiman writings that I enjoy. So I definitely want to work myself through this series, but I'm really looking forward to getting through this and just seeing how this story wraps up. Now on to the big books. Yeah, these ain't the big ones. Leviathan Wakes, which is book 1 of the Expanse series by James S.A. Corey. I'm not really a big sci-fi person, but I am interested in starting. And I've heard multiple times that this is a great series to start out for sci-fi. I've actually read, I think, the first 40, 50 pages of this, and that is definitely true. It has that sci-fi feel. They're definitely out in space. They're definitely using technology. But I understand what's going on. A lot of the stuff that's going on is human relationships and human conflicts and trying to figure out what's going on and working through the crisis. And you definitely jump into the action right away, which I've really enjoyed. Would really love to get through this big chunker of a book. Walking Dead Compendium 3. I've read Compendiums 1 and 2 multiple times. Probably multiple as in 3. But I have yet to read this one. And I just found out from a friend of mine that they're supposed to be coming out with Compendium 4 really soon. So I want to get through this before I get to Compendium 4. I really love The Walking Dead. Zombies usually aren't my thing, but I love the comics. Next book I need to get to. Wizard's First Rule by Terry Goodkind. This is the first book in a series, and I may have talked about these books previously because I was talking about maybe reading this one for my owls, and then I didn't. But I definitely really want to get into this. I just really like the old school fantasy feel that the cover's giving me. And I did try reading the first chapter, and it really surprised me. It wasn't what I was expecting. So definitely looking forward to that. Hello, everyone. The next book that I talk about, I get really tongue-tied. Really tongue-tied. So prepare yourself for almost a whole minute of me trying to say the name of this series. So enjoy! I didn't realize that this book was going to be on this list, but after the new rumors that are coming out, The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. This is book 2 of his King Killer This is book 2 of the King Killer Chronic. Why is it such a difficult name to say? Why did he do this to me? Okay, calm down. Okay. This is book 2 of the King Killer Chronicle. Ha! I said it. Okay. Welcome back again. So I hope you enjoyed it. Now continue enjoying the rest of the video. Everyone talks about this series. Most people enjoy the series. There are some people who say It's not that great. There's a lot more people that say this book was just kind of boring filler and no questions were really answered in this book. But I haven't actually read it. I've only read The Name of the Wind, and that was a long time ago. So I kind of need to reread that one first. But since there is this anticipated release of the third book, The Door of Stone, which is book 3, for August of 2020, I kind of need to get into this. So we'll see what happens. But overall, before any of these books, the book that I need to read, I have to read before the end of the year, Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. Why haven't I read this, you say? You love Way of Kings and Words of Radiance. Why have you not finished this yet, Samantha? That is a good freaking question. I don't know. Because, as you may see, I've gotten about 25% of the way through this book, and I was loving it. Absolutely enjoying it. And then I stopped. I think what happened was that when this book first came out, I actually reread books 1, 2, and Edge Dancer for the first time in order to prepare for this book. And so I read them back to back to back, legit. I didn't read anything else. So by the time I got to Oathbringer, I was burnt out. So I don't recommend doing that because, dude, I just couldn't get through it, but I really want to. So my brother recently read this, and he's a person who doesn't really read much, and he loved this book, especially the second half. So I just need to do it. So to answer your question, long answer, I need to read this and then get to this. So that was my mid-year freak out because I know I need to get to these and it's kind of freaking me out. Anyway, if you want to buddy read any of these books, or if you want to know more about one of these books, leave a comment down below. I'll give you a short little blurb about it. But I would love to do a buddy read with any of these books because honestly, I'm going to need some motivation. Let's get through it. Let's do it. So let me know down below if you agree or disagree with some of my previous questions. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. See ya.